Olá, senhoras e senhores de todo o multiverso. Esse é o AUDIOHERO, o podcast da Super Hero Brasil. E eu sou o Lucas Algebaile.
Eu sou o Luan Pierucci.
É isso aí, galera. Hoje estamos aqui com um podcast super especial. E é muito especial, principalmente para mim, porque estamos aqui com uma lenda, uma verdadeira pessoa lendária dos jogos e das trilhas sonoras de jogos de videogame que todos nós conhecemos até hoje, na atualidade. E mais para isso, eu vou precisar mudar até a língua que eu estou falando, porque eu vou agora mudar para o inglês, para que eu possa apresentá-los para todos vocês. And now, switch to English. I want to introduce, as I introduced him in my personal channel, Mr. Barry.
That's an introduction if I've ever heard one.
I always do this when I play your music, as I always do, as Mr. Barry Leitch, maximum volume. Thank you so much, Barry, for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're grateful, man. And Barry, as we said before, we are here not just conversation, and just to get the start of the things. We want to know, how was the start of your career? If you started in games, or you made music for some other devices?
It was, well, I mean, I was interested in music, much to the dismay of my parents, and I was interested in computers. And I was too lazy to learn how to play an instrument like piano, because that's a lot of work. You got to practice every day and stuff. And so I thought, well, what if I could program the computer to play music? Then I could write music and I wouldn't have to sit and practice all the time. So that was how I got started. Started programming the computer, getting it to play music. There was a British composer, Rob Hubbard. He was doing some amazing music on the Commodore 64. And when I heard his music, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. I want to be as cool as that guy. And so I've been trying to do that for the last 40 years.
Hey, that's funny. That's exactly why I feel that, because I listen to your music, and someday I'm going to do just like this guy did.
It's funny. Everybody has their own person that was the inspiration for getting them started, going down that path of writing music or stuff. It's incredible to hear people's stories.
Right.
But yeah, from there I started writing tunes on the computer, sent them to all the game companies, said, hey, you guys should definitely buy my music. It's so good. And my music was terrible. It wasn't good. But eventually one of the game companies said, that one tune that you did there, out of the, I'd send them like 100 tunes, and they're all terrible. And one company said, that one tune, that one's not bad. It's not completely shit. We'd like to buy that one. Said, yes.
Yeah.
That's very funny to hear, because obviously it was probably a very long and hard way for you to start doing your music and then starting composing the soundtrack for games. But do you remember which one was the first game that you did the whole soundtrack for?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a game called ICUPS, ICUPS, on the Commodore 64. And back then, I mean, games were pretty simple. It had one tune. That was it. It was real easy to do. You write a tune, that, the game had music. By the time we were doing Super Nintendo games, a game might have 4 or 5 tunes, maybe more. And then when you get to games like Horizon Chase, you've got, an hour of music in it and stuff. In fact, the other day, I was digging through some old files the other day. I worked on a game called Gauntlet Legacy, or Gauntlet Legends, sorry. And it's got nearly 2 hours of music in it. I mean, it's like so much music.
Wow.
It just kept expanding exponentially. I think people put more and more in these games.
Wow.
And there's one question that I would like to question you is how is the magic that you all do to compose music in maybe one tune, two tunes for compress for be on a cartridge.
Well,
How do you do that?
well, you do things like sharing the instrument samples between all the tunes. So, like on a game like Top Gear, it only has like 5 tunes in it. They all share the same kick drum, snare drum, bass sound. You know, so those core instruments only take up 20 kilobytes or so, maybe 30, 40 kilobytes, and then the music data is another 10 kilobytes on top. So it all fits in a tiny amount of space. And then, but these days it's all MP3 and Wave and stuff, so it
Yeah, and
takes up a lot
nowadays
longer.
I think it's nowadays got a little bit easier. Am I wrong?
Well, no, I mean it's interesting to look how much time was spent on these projects. Because for me, Top Gear was a really quick project. It was 5 days and got all the music done and put on the cartridge. Job done. On to the next one. I mean, we were doing so many games back then. I think over a 5-year period, there was like the first 5 years or so. I think I did over 100 games. But when I was doing a game like Horizon Chase, I spent more than a week just trying to pick all the right sounds that I wanted to use for the tunes. And even then, when you start another tune, then you have to, oh, I'm going to need a different snare drum for this. So then you spend 2 hours listening to different snare drums, trying to find the one that gives you just the right amount of energy and stuff. And then you've got to mix it and stuff, and that takes another, several days to mix a track. It's a lot more work these days doing finished products.
That's very nice because for me, at least, and I'm sure that Lucas agrees as well, the soundtrack is kind of like 50% of the emotion that we have from the games, and especially the games back then in Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, etc., etc. I remember as simple as they were, the soundtracks in games, they have such impact on you. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of your work in Top Gear. It's definitely my favorite, to be honest. And it's very interesting. And I wanted to know from you that you assembled the whole soundtrack for the game. How was it for you to do a soundtrack that it's in very, like, in quotes, simple with the tunes, but also can express so much emotion? I know that brings a lot of study and a lot of thinking for you to assemble these tunes in order to bring these emotions into us,
To be honest, at the time, we didn't put too much thought into it. We just knew that it was going to be a fast-paced game. I could see how fast the game was. So it was, well, we're going to need some fast music for this and going to make it be fairly interesting with arpeggios and stuff to try and hide the fact that there wasn't that much going on, in the music. The arpeggios were great for making it feel more busy than it was. In fact, that the title tune, it was originally the game completion tune for an Amiga game called Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. And I was trying to find, because the Amiga could only play 4 notes at any time. So you could only have like a bass drum, a lead voice, bass sound, and maybe a sample of a chord or something. So you're very limited as to what you could get in there. And so what I was trying to do was to trick the listener into making it sound like there was more than 4 things playing. So I used a staccato bass line and had some arpeggiated chords playing after, in between the bass notes. And then I had 2 different arpeggios going. One of them plays slightly off time. So like on the first, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 16th note, it would play little notes from that arpeggio. And then there'd be another one on the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th, going the other direction, just to throw the listener off so they couldn't tell exactly how many channels were playing. So it sounded more like 6 or 7 notes were playing at any one time. So that was me trying to be clever. And then I was like, well, that tune's pretty busy. It sounds quite good. Let's just put that on the Super Nintendo. It's fast. It's interesting enough.
You can be absolutely right that you're clever because the sound is amazing. It's amazing nowadays. I listen nowadays and I think, wow, it's just like listening to today's music.
Well, I mean, when you go back even further to like computers like the Commodore 64, I mean, the things Rob Hubbard was doing was he was playing like a tiny little bit of white noise on every bass note. So if you had a bass line that just went da 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 da, he'd put a little bit of white noise at the beginning, like cha 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 cha. So it sounded like a hi-hat was playing. Just that tiny little difference. It made it seem more richer and stuff. So we do try and do all those things to make it sound better, more complicated, not just 3 notes playing or 4 notes.
Talk about Top Gear. Every time, this is not really my question, but it's one of our friends that he should be here today, but unfortunately he can't. But I'm gonna ask for the question for him. He says that when he listens Las Vegas, he sounds like when he is driving and he is driving away and feel the power of things. And how was for you to capture this feeling and transfer it for us along the music?
Well, I think that's when I wrote it. It was the whole Vegas piece was me just testing out the Super Nintendo sound development kit. I used my favorite chord progression. I used an arpeggio to try and make it sound busy. That's where I started with, because I was trying to work out, because we had no manuals for the thing and how to program it. And so, okay, I'll start on C1 and go up to, see how far up I can go. And then I'll change it so it plays different chords. And I did that chord progression. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll put a bass line in there. The arpeggio thing, the story with that was when I first got that arpeggio playing, I noticed that there was like an echo command or something in the source code. And I was like, I wonder what that does. So I started playing around with the echo. And so the Super Nintendo was the first console that had some DSP effects. So you could turn on like a reverb or an echo. And so I had it playing with this massive echo on it. So it would go ding, 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 it echo beautifully. And so I turned over I turned around to the programmer who was working on the game next to me. And I'm like, what does this number here mean? He's like, that's how much memory you've used. Apparently the echo uses memory. So you've only got, I think it was like 24K or 32 kilobytes on the Super Nintendo for all your sound instruments. And so he's like, yeah, you've now used, 30 kilobytes out of that 32 just by turning that echo on. So if you do that, you've got no room for any other instrument samples or any music, basically. And so I had to change the echo so it was just a really short echo, which turned out, is one thing that makes the arpeggio sound fuller and stuff. It didn't sound anywhere near as cool as it did when it had a big long echo and stuff. It was a fun accident.
Yeah, sometimes it happens there.
Yeah, happy accidents. Those
very happy accident.
And Barry, one thing that I wanted to ask you, and it's nice that it connects with what you said right now regarding the storage the space that you had to work. You did soundtracks for many games across many platforms. I wanted to know, how was the experience for you when you were like changing the platform? Okay, I was doing a game for Nintendo. Now I'm doing a game for PlayStation, which gives me way more space to work, way more tools to work. How was it for you? I can believe that it was easier for you to work with more tools, But how was this change for you between all these platforms that you work?
Well, usually there wasn't. It wasn't like you could just go and buy tools from off the shelf. It wasn't like anybody was making tools for these things. So we pretty much had to make our own tools as we did it. And I designed a music data structure. It was a unified data structure that we shared between all the different platforms. So what I would do is I would write my music on the Commodore Amiga because it had 4 channels, and you know, it was quite powerful. It sounded good. It was 4 channels of samples, and so when I was writing the music, I would always know that I had to convert it to the Commodore 64, the Spectrum, the Amstrad, the Atari ST, the Game Boy, the Game Gear. Now, most of those shared a fairly similar set of sound chips, but they could only play 3 notes at any one time. So going from 4 channels to 3, I knew that I was going to have to cut something down. So when I was writing the music, I would always try and think of a way that I could reduce the tune. So I would have like your lead voice, your bass voice, your drums, and a backing sound. And I would be thinking ahead, thinking, okay, I can take that backing instrument and I can squeeze some of it into the drum channel and maybe a little bit onto the bass channel. You know, if there's a space in the bass line, you know, if the bass line goes dun da 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 dun da da, you know, there's a space there where you can squeeze a note in for a different sound. And so from there, when I converted it into source code, which was basically just typing it notes in the text files and then compiling them, then I would create the instrument sounds, because they were all created on the chip themselves, the sound chip. A lot of those other computers, the Atari ST and stuff, they could make 2 sounds. They could go beep or they could go, you know, it wasn't like you had a huge sound palette to choose from. So that was always you would do little arpeggio effects with the notes. Like if you played 3 notes super quickly, it would sound almost like a chord if you used an envelope to fade it and stuff. I mean, when systems, by the time the PlayStation 1 came out, I mean, you'd write music on. See, I never had to do a project that was on the. Well, Gauntlet Legends was on this Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, and it was originally from an arcade machine. So there was another guy that had written all the arcade music, John Paul at Atari. He had written this big score for the arcade machine. And when I had to put it on the Nintendo 64, I listened to it and I was like, there is no fucking way this is going to fit on a Nintendo 64 cartridge. He had all these big orchestral samples, big things where they have a full orchestra going dun, 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 dun. And I was like, man, that's going to take, you know, half the cartridge space away. So I went in there. I was like, I cut huge pieces of his tunes out, just rewrote them completely. I'm sure he hated the job that I did on it. But when it came time to do the PlayStation version, I think they used most of just John Paul's work originally, and then they took a couple of pieces that I had written, extra pieces. I recorded them with synthesizers instead of samples, because the Nintendo 64 was still wavetable instruments, you know, the same as the Super Nintendo and the Wii and stuff. I think that's one thing Nintendo have done right over the years. For so many years, it gave it such a unique sound. That wavetable music data and instrument samples. It sounds computery. It sounds like what you expect a video game to sound like.
Yeah.
Rather than switch to full orchestral scores and stuff. Because, you know, not that full orchestral scores don't sound great and stuff, but, you know, you played Super Mario World, you know, the last thing, I don't know. I don't want to listen to full orchestra playing that stuff.
We are talking about a difference from platforms. And in the 16 bits battle, who has the best sound for you, Nintendo or Genesis?
I hated both of them. I mean, I really hated the Genesis, but I preferred the Super Nintendo over the Genesis. The Genesis was FM based, which was at the time the PC AdLib sound card or Sound Blaster was just it had just come out, and it was horrible. I didn't understand FM synthesis. I never managed to learn it properly. I don't know. I didn't like it, and plus the music driver I had for the Genesis was terrible. I could play notes with really simple sounds. There were other people that had better music drivers where they could play sampled drums, sampled instruments. I couldn't play any of that. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I didn't have the code. And then when we found someone that wanted that was selling a music driver, hey, do you want to buy a music driver to use in your games? They wanted a ridiculous amount of money, and the game companies, hell, they wanted more to use their music driver than I was making in a whole year. Wow. At the time. Whoa. So it was like, if you license that music driver, I'm going to want a pay rise. So they never did it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it would have been lovely to have those, those capabilities. I mean, you hear the things that the Japanese composers did on those machines, because they always said, they had better access to the hardware documentation than the British developers did. The British developers had to reverse engineer everything and try and hack their way into the system, whereas the Japanese programmers had it straight from the horse's mouth. They were told exactly what it could and couldn't do.
So I know that.
And Barry, this is very interesting because you were saying about the limitations and how you needed to compress some music to fit in the cartridges and all that, and it's crazy. And I view that this is related much more to the talent of the composer than anything else, because I find it amazing how such a technically simple range and sounds placed in the game can bring up so many emotions to us, because one of my favorite games from the time is Streets of Rage, which was released for the Mega Drive and all, and I love so much the soundtrack on that game. And as Lucas was saying, these are soundtracks for Streets of Rage, for Top Gear specifically. These are soundtracks that we can listen today, and they are absolutely amazing how it works and how it brings up emotions to us. How is it for you to, like you said, that the work that you did on Top Gear was quite quick, right? You finished the whole work quite quick. How is it for you to see that the work that you did in a few days, like, it's so praised and so remembered many years ahead, and it's a work that will last forever, man, that everybody will be inspired, will love forever? How is that feeling for you?
It's crazy. I mean, it's really it's a whole range of emotions. It's indescribable. I mean, when you put a piece of music out there, you hope that other people are going to hear it, and you hope other people are going to like it, but you never know what it's going to be. I mean, there's been pieces of music where I put so much effort into them, and you pour your heart and soul into writing these pieces. You get tears running down your cheeks when you're writing them, because it's, to you, it's the most personal thing you've ever written, and then you release it, and somebody goes, it's not bad. It's like, my God, can't you hear the emotion in there? And like, it's kind of sad. I don't like it. But you put that music out there, and sometimes, I mean, usually it takes some time. I mean, sometimes it takes a long time before you get that piece of feedback back from someone, where someone says, that tune that you wrote 27 years ago, I fucking love it. I listen to it every day. It's the best thing I've ever heard. And you're like, yes, you got it, man. Thank you. But it doesn't happen a lot more times than it does. So it's always beautiful to hear that feedback from people when they do connect with it and enjoy it. I mean, even if it was something you wrote quickly in a rush, because I wanted to go home. When I did Top Gear, I was down working at Gremlin Graphics. They were like a couple of hours away from where I lived, and I'd just been dropped off. They dropped me at the front door basically and said, "You can come home when you finish it." It's like, well, fuck, So I'm sitting there, having to sleep on some programmer's floor at night while I'm trying to get this work done. You just hope that the music connect with people. But I mean, the stories I've heard from Top Gear, my God, the people connected. It reminds them of a time when they were playing that game with their brother, their cousin, their father, and when they share the stories with you and stuff, and when their father's not there anymore or something, it's so emotional, and it touches you. It really does.
And talking about this, I'm gonna just push another question for you. How do you see the evolution of games musics? Because you're in just almost all the time of game production music. So how do you see the evolution of the games music as well?
It's changed a lot. I mean, it changed so much. I mean, it really only took like 5. I mean, I started in 1986, and that was 40 years ago. And in the time between 1986 and about 1992, 93, that was when CDs first started coming out, and people started they started shipping games on CDs. So as a composer, you're like, I want to make CD music. I want to get synthesizers. I want a singer. I want a real guitarist. And obviously those things didn't always happen. You weren't allowed to spend all that money on things. You have a budget to keep within. So by 1992, a lot of it changed. I mean, there was still a lot of technical stuff, doing your Nintendo things, your Game Boys, Game Boy Advances, Game Gears. God, so many systems. But yeah, so there was still that technical aspect. I think it got easier. I think it was probably another 10 years. By about 2000, 2002. By then you had the PlayStation 2 or Xbox. I can't remember what year the PlayStation 2 came out. Can't remember what Nintendo we were on around then. It was a GameCube. I can't remember what year that came out.
It was GameCube that was a little proximity.
I never had a GameCube. Did the GameCube have CD audio, or was it wavetable based?
I don't recall that, but I think it was the only Nintendo that had CD. But I don't recall as well.
Yeah, I need to check. But yeah, by 2000, that was then all the game companies were like, right, let's not have these weird computer programmer composers. Let's get Danny Elfman in to write the music. Let's get my friends got a band. We can record some rock music from them. Let's get those guys. It was a really weird time. And that was when I switched. I changed industries. I went to work on children's toys instead because they use a lot of the similar technologies. I program these little chips and circuit boards and stuff, programming kids' toys. And I still do video games. I still did video games. I've been making videos and putting them on social media, trying to tell this, the stories of some of the games that I worked on and stuff. And I've made 20 videos so far. And it's like, shit, I've still got another 20 videos still to go. I need to do one for every year of my career. So there's so many games. Then there's always something that needs a soundtrack, and sometimes those games were, the more retro styled or wavetable. They used wavetable type compression, mechanisms to play the music. Some of them were CD audio, like Horizon Chase. And the Senna stuff, oh my God, that was what an honor. And yesterday was the anniversary of his death. That was emotional, to say the least. I mean, it was a great honor to do the Senna DLC. And last year when I was in Brazil for RetroCon in Sao Paulo, they had one of his racing cars there. And, you know, I had wandered off. I was all on my own, you know, people weren't bugging me and stuff. And I'm standing there in front of that car thinking, fucking hell, you know, that's one of the cars that he raced in. And here I am 20 years later, you know, I've written these tunes for this guy that I'd never met, but here I'm sitting looking at his race car, getting a little choked up emotionally, you know, just standing there.
Yeah, it was curious that you mentioned Senna because I'm a really, really, really big fan of him, and as he inspires me. And I cheated a little bit when I said when I finish always with Top Gear. I don't finish always with Top Gear. I finish with the victory theme that Senna always Senna wins. And here in Brazil, we had a transmission plays extremely very, very good song by Roupa Nova. There's a band here in Brazil. They produce a very, very with orchestra, and it's a very excellent team. I don't know if you have already listened to this theme, but it's a very, very great. And his team inspires me too, as you inspire me too. So I do this every time I do this references in my life.
So you're talking about the Senna victory theme, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, that's it.
When it came time to do the music for it, for the Senna DLC, I started a piece where I was trying to incorporate the victory theme, but you know these pieces are copyright, and so when I started writing, I had that melody in there, and when I sent it to Aquarius, they're like, yeah, if we use that, we're going to get sued, so you need to change it. So I had to go and change it, try and write a different melody. But I think I've still got a copy of it somewhere that still has that. Da 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 da.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I have no words for this, and if I got an opportunity, I would really have to listen with this.
That's amazing for you to tell me because, as I said, my favorite piece of work that you did is Top Gear, but Horizon Chase is very special for us because not only with the whole story with Ayrton Senna, but Horizon Chase was developed by a Brazilian company. So
yeah,
it always there's always that thing where we want that thing back from our home to succeed, you know. And
yeah.
Horizon Chase was such a big success, and when I was researching and when I was playing the game again, after we scheduled the interview with you, I went to play the game again to listen more to your work and to listen more to that. And I was like, man, I had nothing to do with the game, but I am so proud to have this whole history behind it, you know. And I wanted to know how was your experience when the company, with the developers approached you and your experience working in the game. You already mentioned a little bit about the Senna DLC, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But the whole game itself from the beginning and the development of your work on it.
Well, it was one of the Aquarius guys, one of the original founders. He shot me a message on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, we're thinking of doing a Top Gear game. You want to do the music for it?" I was like, "Sure, sounds like fun," you know. And I got talking to them, and it became apparent real fast that they were really passionate about it. You know, you could tell these guys loved the game. And later on, I mean, it was a couple of years later after the game was released, and I got talking to them, and it sounded like they were going through a little difficult time in their business, because they had been doing architectural software or something up until that point, and you know maybe the market was changing and stuff, and And I think they just decided, fuck it, let's make a game that we want to play. Let's make the one game we want to play. And when they originally contacted me, I mean, for the whole time that I was writing the music, I only had like one picture of the game, and it was a really early picture. It was a square, blocky graphic of a car. It didn't look anything like the final game, but it looked kind of fun, and they were super excited about it. And so I thought, I thought, it'll be fun. Fuck it, why not? I could do it. It's a chance to go back and do it. It'll be fun. I can get to do it properly, put more care into it, because by that time I knew that Top Gear was really popular in Brazil. So in South America in general, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Colombia. I mean, all those South American countries, they love Top Gear. Top Gear was reasonably popular in Europe, but not many people had a Super Nintendo. People had a Commodore Amiga because they could copy the games on a Commodore Amiga real easily. Whereas to copy Super Nintendo games, you had to buy extra stuff, and it cost even more. And you still had to find the bloody games, which, I mean, in Brazil, I've seen people just pirated the whole cartridge, which is impressive. But we certainly didn't have anything like that at the time.
There are some magics here. There are some magics.
That is interesting because it's safe to say, due to the whole restrictions of the time and all that, I'm not sure if you had already heard the stories, but we had many console clones here in Brazil. So Nintendo, for example, we had help me out because it was
it was Dynavision, it was Phantom System, various.
Yeah. Because it was too expensive to import the consoles from Japan and the US and all that. So it's safe to say that this story and the piracy, I gotta say, was one of the things that made video games so famous here in Brazil. I remember to this day, especially in the PlayStation 2 era, which PlayStation 2 and Sega Saturn which was my first video game of all time. The piracy here in Brazil was very strong yet. So we used to buy a lot of games with for very cheap prices. And it was one of the things that made video games so popular here in Brazil. It's crazy to hear that because if it was only for the originals prices, probably video games wouldn't be so strong here in Brazil as they are now, which now is
it was the same in the UK. I mean, everybody in the UK had a Sinclair Spectrum or a Commodore 64. Mm-hmm. Those were the first two computers that hit. And there were other computers at the time, but those were the ones people got because the games came on cassettes and we could copy them easily. And so as a result, you got the software, kept the kids entertained. Mm-hmm. They're breaking the law a little bit. Who cares? But all those kids, almost everybody I've ever met in the game industry all started on those first two computers from the UK anyway. That was where it all evolved from. At least guys my age, younger guys obviously didn't start on those.
Yeah, the cloning was in the 8-bits era, because on 16 bits that occurred a change. The government has opened the economy, so the foreign companies could launch here in Brazil directly. So the cloning thing has balanced a little bit, but had still some way.
Yeah.
Well, for in Europe, the Commodore Amiga was massive. The Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST, both 16-bit systems, they were floppy disk based, so people could still copy the games. And people didn't want cartridges because they cost, 30. Well, you're talking about 150 reais, 200 reais for a cartridge. And they were like, I can buy a floppy disk for $2. Copy.
Exactly.
And
So, yeah,
one last thing that I wanted to ask that I'm very curious of. You were part of many important projects and many famous projects, working alongside with many famous companies, as we were discussing, like Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, and all. How was like the restrictions or the directions that these companies gave you while making the soundtrack? Because we know that Nintendo is very, how can I say, it's very carry with their projects. So everything needs to follow a straight line, needs to be exactly how they want it. I know that this is a lot to prioritize their artistic vision to be everything the way it is. And I mean, Nintendo games are amazing, so
they
it
had
works.
they had very strict guidelines that were all spelled out. I mean, I remember at I don't know if I should tell this story, but at Ocean Software, it was one of the games. I think it was. I think Oceans did a Lemmings conversion on the Game Boy or something. It was a game that wasn't their original IP. You know, they'd handled the conversion for someone else because they had a license to publish on Nintendo, and there was a bug in the game. Now, at the time, I mean, you had to test your game. There was no way to update a game once it was released, so the game had to be tested flawlessly from start to finish. And somehow, this game had been released with a bug in it, and I remember I could overhear a meeting outside, people talking about it, where they had been given a script that if someone called in saying, "Hey, I found a bug in this game," they were supposed to say, "I'm sorry, we haven't heard of that bug before. Could you please tell us more about it?" and stuff. I mean, but you know, Nintendo had guides about the colors, you know, the characters, the words you could say, you know, the text and stuff. You couldn't have any expletives or anything like that. Which is, I mean, you're aiming for a children's market. It's all logical. So, but music-wise, there wasn't any real, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. I mean, I was always, there was a game, Rock and Roll Racing, where they did a bunch of cover versions of songs. And I'm pretty sure to this day that they didn't pay to license those songs. They just stuck them in the game. So, what the hell? What are they going to do? So, who knows?
Barry, was talking about Horizon Chase. There was a special track that I liked, and I've already chatted you about this. How about Lullaby for Cecilia? I think that music is brilliant. That harmony and that keyboards and the piano, amazing.
Thanks, man. I mean, that was just a fun thing. When I was working on the game, the producer on the game, Israel, his wife was having their first baby, and so I'm working on the soundtrack, and you know, I do lullabies for kids' toys all the time and stuff. And I thought, I wonder how the title tune would sound if I did it as a lullaby. You know, I'll slow it down, I'll change the instruments, I'll make it softer, you know, prettier, and because a lot of time when I write stuff for kids' toys, if I use a minor chord in the tune, the toy company will freak out. They're like, "Oh, that bit's so sad. We can't have sad pieces in the music. You know, it's all got to be major keys." And it's like, that's not how it works. You know, you've got to be able to take things a little sad, then bring it back, and you know, a little happiness. You know, you got to be able to use those other chords and stuff. And so partly it was me wanting to prove that I could do something pretty with a minor key and stuff. But I had done things like that in the past. There was a Fisher-Price aquarium that I did the music for, which surprisingly enough, I mean, if you go to my SoundCloud page and look at what the most played piece of music is, it's a cover that I did of that Fisher-Price aquarium music. It has like 3 or 4 times the amount of streams than the Horizon Chase tunes. It's crazy. I mean, millions of people heard that one. And that was one that I put a minor tune in it and a minor chord sequence in it. And yeah, there was a bit of back and forth between the marketing people. They're like, "Oh, it's too sad. You need to change it." I still managed to squeeze it into that first year it was released. I think they removed it for subsequent years, but that's the one people remember as the one that felt sad.
Yeah, but it's amazing track. I love this. I love all Top Gear tracks and all Rise and Chase tracks. On a bunch of your work, that's absolutely amazing.
Thanks. What did you think of Horizon Chase 2?
Oh, I didn't play Horizon Chase 2, but I listened to all the soundtrack because I have to buy the game, and I didn't have the opportunity to play. And I love to play and listen to it gave the boost to me to do this. But in Horizon Chase 2, you did you have superior yourself. I don't know how you do this. You can always do this.
I can't take all the credit for that. Paolo, the music producer at Aquarius, he did a lot of work with the recording the live guitar and stuff for it, and the production work. You know, he did a great job at mixing and mastering the final tracks. In fact, he came up here. He was here for a couple of weeks. We were doing the final mixes, arguing about things. Turn the bass sound up. God damn it, are you deaf? Can you not hear that? That was a lot of fun.
And Gary, I think Gary, a final line here. I want to ask you one thing. How your music, as we conclude here, has reached all the barriers, and how do you feel that when you saw your music doing by some remixes or mashups?
I mean, sometimes it's very interesting. I mean, there's that video where they're playing the 4.0 version of Top Gear. Just the guy with the accordion and the other guy making sounds with the microphone and stuff, being silly. I mean, that's fascinating. It's fun to hear. I mean, and the fact that these guys are from way the fuck out there in Brazil. They're like out in the the far away from the cities. You know, they don't even have electricity. How the fuck did they hear Top Gear on the Super Nintendo, let alone learn to play the music and stuff? It's fascinating, you know, just to see how far it's permeated. But then, you know, you see other people that are just churning out covers of game music and throwing it online, and you know, they don't even credit the original composers. You know, I look at those sometimes. You know, if they don't even credit me for the music, I'm like, son of a bitch. You know, my name should be up there. You know, that's kind of frustrating.
Oh, I credit you on my mashup. I credit you. And but house game you, I credited you.
But at the same time, it's flattering that these guys, you know, they like to hear the music enough. They like the music enough and it stuck with them to want to make their own version. They heard it and thought, oh, that'll sound really good if I play it, you know, in a death metal style, or I'll sing over it. I'll have there was one video that had a bunch of Brazilian women dancing around in bikinis for the pop video. I was like, well, that's different. It's pretty cool.
There's a curiosity. Curiosity. You have inspired one Faha group to make one version of of Top Gear.
That might be the one I translated the lyrics, and the lyrics were incredibly sexist. It was like, I'm not sure if I would have.
Oh, I beg of you, don't translate the lyrics. Don't translate.
It's just usually those kinds of songs that you just like follow the beat. If the beat is like happy, you just follow it and you don't pay attention at all at the lyrics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that I wanted to ask you is like a two-part question, actually, for a curiosity thing for us. First, I know that the parent can't choose between their favorite sons, but I wanted to know from you if you had that special soundtrack of your entire work, which one is the one that hits different? Which one is your favorite from your whole catalog?
I don't know. There's ones that hit different for different reasons. And I've realized this going by making those videos, those little shorts on YouTube, picking games from each year that I worked on. You know, there's things like the first game that I wrote the soundtrack using synthesizers. You know, that was it was like, yeah, we're finally making music. It sounds like a fucking orchestra. This sounds real. It sounds like real music. It's not beeps anymore. You know, I was super excited about that. But then the game never got released and nobody got to hear it. And it's like, oh, shit. And there's other ones, you know, like TFX was one that it was the first real big soundtrack that I'd done. And it had, you know, multiple different tunes for flying to different missions. It was going to be interactive. It was going to, you know, when you went into battle, it played a different battle tune, and then if you shot down a bad guy, it would play a different bit of music, depending on whether it was a good thing or bad thing. And then it played different music as you flew home, whether you were happy or sad about completing your mission or failing it. You know, and I was happy with that one. But I mean, usually with a composer, if you ask them what the favorite thing that they wrote was, it's usually whatever they just wrote last week, because that's the one that's on their mind. That I wrote that one fucking kicks ass. And then if you ask me again in 2 weeks, it'll be a different piece.
This only means that your work keeps improving, man. So, you know.
Well, you've got to, and that's something you got to keep challenging yourself as a composer. You got to try and write different things, because otherwise everything just starts to sound the same. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. You know, one of the things I noticed doing those videos was I used the same bass line. I wrote this bass line when I was 16 years old on the Commodore 64, and I used it on a game on the Commodore 64, and then I just kept using it because it was a nice fast-paced bass. And I used it in Top Gear. It's the one in the Vegas tune that goes up and down an octave. And I used it in that, and I've used it in, you know, probably about a dozen other video games since then. It's just a bad habit, but that's the baseline I like to use when I want things to sound fast and fast-paced. And so when someone says, hey, you want to do music for a driving game, the first thing I start with is that baseline.
Nice. And for the last question that I wanted to ask you, as I said, is a two-part question. Now, taking away your work, because it wouldn't be fair with the other games, I wanted to know, besides your work, which one is your favorite soundtrack in games?
Of all games?
Of all games. It's a tough question, I know that.
Well, I mean, there's a couple that stand out to me. Rob Hubbard's Commodore 64 game, Spellbound. Fantastic piece of music. It's a beautiful piece of music, and technically it pushed the Commodore 64 to its limits. It was fantastic. Technically amazing what he managed to squeeze out of 3 notes at any time. I encourage people to go and listen to it, and then go listen to the remix I made of it. If you search for Leitch Spellbound on YouTube, you'll find it. So there's that one, but then there's also I like playing real-time strategy games. You know, like Supreme Commander, Forged Alliance. You know, everybody played Command and Conquer, Red Alert, all those games. But there was one, Stronghold. There was a series of games, Stronghold. Stronghold Crusader, Stronghold. It's a castle game. You know, you built a castle and an army, and then went and attacked somebody else's castle. But the soundtrack for that was, I thought, really beautiful, really well done, and it was all just medieval music. It was all just really nice pieces of music that I really liked. It's a nice theme piece. I mean, it's not like I listen to it in the car when I'm driving around or something, but I always liked it in the game.
Nice.
And Barry, for my last question, and as one of the motives of this podcast today is to celebrate your 40 years journey in this industry, And I would like to say thank you for all your contributions. And I have something more specific to tell you. You have know about special kind of music called synthwave.
Yeah, yeah.
You know that you inspired too much synthwave.
Well, maybe it's because my tunes weren't good enough that people thought, oh, well, I could do it better with a bunch of synthesizers.
I don't have all proper to say that, and I'm taking property now to say that you have, you and a bunch of others, but you have influenced the most important style of music to me nowadays. And I have to thank you so much. And how do you think knowing that?
What do I think of all that? I think it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. We created music the best way we could with the hardware we had. You know, it's amazing that it inspired people. I went to I met a guy yesterday who was he's a chip tune composer, and so I was listening to his music on the way back in the car. You know, I was checking out his albums because he'd done three or four or five albums. And some of them were cover tunes of like 9 Inch Nails songs. I quite like Nine Inch Nails, you know, Trent Reznor and stuff. I like that industrial stuff. But I was listening to his chip tunes, and you know, when you're following a melody with a chip lead, it's just beep 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 beep, and it's like, you know, I mean, everything else he was doing was really interesting, but that lead voice was, I'm like, that's kind of annoying. You know, and with the technology we've got today, I mean, I could easily recreate. I can generate voice singing just with software, like with Synthesizer V or Vocaloid and stuff, where you can create a realistic human voice singing those things. And I thought, you know, it would be so much better if you just, you know, threw a human voice over the top of it, singing it. And I was telling him that last night. I was like, look, your tunes are really good. I really got a kick out of them. But I've got an idea. He's like,
Been it up a while. You told generate, and it reminded me something. What do you think of the AI using on the music?
I don't know. It's difficult at the moment. I mean, we're in that weird time. I mean, when you think about when synthesizers first came out, all the guitar players and keyboardists, they were all like, this is shit. They're putting people out of jobs. It's terrible. And now we've got new technology that is, you know, it's taking work from composers. I mean, if you're making a game, you can go to Suno and type in, hey, make me a racing soundtrack. And you'll get a game, you know, a piece of music that's pretty damn good. I mean, it's impressive how good it is. But at the same time, there's a real public backlash against it. I see it quite often. There's a few friends that are composers that have really been pushing AI to see what it can do. So they'll write a piece of music and give it to AI and say, hey, can you do the bass line for this, make it more interesting, more, you know, and the production work it can bring to it is interesting. But then when they release it to the public, you know, the first thing the public does is download it and put it into one of those AI checkers to see if it's, you know, if they've used AI. And then they say, oh yeah, it's like 90% sure this is an AI track. And then people are like, fuck you, man, you're sold out, you're writing shit music now. Because they don't know how much original work is in that piece of music that AI's worked on. And there's no way for people to easily tell. I don't know. I think people will just start to accept it over time. We'll all just get used to it. I mean, right now we have a live person reading the news to us at night on the television. And there's no reason for that. They can have an AI-generated bot on screen reading you the news, bursting into tears when they're telling you sad news and stuff, you know, doing all kinds of things that a regular person wouldn't do, you know. Maybe they'll get up and dance and sing a song. They'll sing a song about the interest rates are going down. We should all be happy. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems ridiculous now, but wait 5 years. I'm sure there'll be.
We're gonna finish now. And Barry, one more time, thank you so much. Thank you. It was amazing, amazing experience for me. I think for Ron too. You're an amazing person as well. You treat us all well, always being on time. Thank you so much. You're amazing. You're amazing. I have no words for you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been fun to be here and have a good chat about the old days.
And Barry, I'm sure that not only us were big fans of your work, but our audience is as well. People who stuck around with us until now in the show. I wanted you to tell everyone if they want to listen more to your work, if they want to follow you in social media, where they can find you.
Go to Facebook, find me on Facebook. That's probably the easiest. You can go to my Bandcamp page. If the music's, you can listen for free on Bandcamp. If you can't afford to buy the tracks, if they're too expensive, because I know the exchange rate with Brazil's fucking stupid. You know, it costs about $1 million to buy an album on there. Buy a track and download the rest of them. Send me a token, a beer payment.
The price here in Brazil is a real stab.
Yeah, I know, and it's crazy. You know, it was we ran into that at RetroCon. I took a bunch of CDs down there to sell, and of course it had the CDs made in America, and it was like a double CD. And when I told my buddy down there, Nino, he's like, how much did you pay for them? And I was like, well, Christ, it was like $8 a CD. He's like, that's 40 reais for a double CD. He says, we ain't gonna pay 40 reais for a double CD. He's like, God damn it. Do you think we can sell them for 41? I can make $1 off each one.
Yeah, we have an expensive taste here. So I'm gonna change now to Portuguese, Barry, to finish the program. All right.
Obrigado. And well, I don't know if I should say the other two words that I know. Mas foda.
Go ahead, no problem.
Please do.
Mas foda, guys. Thank you. Obrigado. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much. É isso aí, galera. Mais uma vez, muito obrigado a todos vocês que nos ouviram, a gente aí, nos viram até agora. Sigam aí, além das redes do Barry Leitch, sigam as nossas redes sociais, @Super Hero Brasil, no YouTube, @Super Hero Brasil TV. E é isso aí, galera. Muito obrigado. Valeu demais. Até a próxima. Tchau. Goodbye.